I want to start by asking, how did you guys meet your significant others?
I met through mutual friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
College.
So in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you agree, and I feel this way, that most people's long-lasting best relationships are usually met in person? It's usually through friend networks, people, and not necessarily like you see them at a bar, right? But it's like through connections you have rather than dating apps or online. And I'm not saying definitively that's the case. Like my current relationship started online, right?
Yeah.
So it's obviously, but I think broadly that is the trend I've seen that's more likely to be successful.
I think no. I want to say yes so badly. I feel like that's my inner bias. That is my personal experience. But when I think about all the people in my life that have asked about how they've met their partners, especially how they meet new people if they've like started dating within the last few years, the amount of people that say Hinge, man, it is so many people. And I feel like online is it's definitely the majority.
It's by far the majority. I was trying to pull up a graphic.
I mean, statistically, it definitely is the majority. Maybe the question you're asking is like, does that equal something long-term or sustainable?
So two of the big themes I saw, one is people, and everybody pretty much agrees with this, dating apps suck, right? So, a couple people, Durnka mentioned that Gen Z just doesn't seem to want to meet as many people organically in person. Tommy 1344 said about dating apps, I get a good amount of matches, but I never follow up with any of them because it all feels like lust with no real interest behind it. Klarna Storm said, I have two close friends who are both looking for a relationship on dating apps. What can only be described as abysmal results. It's affecting their mental health drastically. They laugh it off, but they're hurting badly, even for people who know what's going on. So it feels, and that's like a recurring thing over and over. Everybody talks pretty negatively about dating apps. So I think that everybody's being funneled towards that, right? And I've experienced that myself. I mean, you guys have been out of the dating pool for a while, but that's certainly my experience. Like that's the way to go. Even more so if you're somebody who has hobbies and interests that are primarily online, or you're not in a dance class or whatever, right? It's like I don't go to bars casually. So
what I heard about dating apps though, is the idea that, human beings are not well adjusted to an abundance of choice, which is that it makes us very, very difficult to commit. If you think, like if you're in a relationship that you met through online and it's not, something goes wrong or something's not perfect, you're much more likely to jettison that, and because you have a million other options, you can always swipe again.
It is poison for your brain, man. I was on dating apps pretty consistently from age 19 to 24, I want to say.
Okay.
I'm 28. Yeah, I'm 28 right now.
Never got laid once. That's crazy.
And
5 years doing it?
It's because I look for just
you're only there for lust.
Conversation.
It's because you open with Mario Kart Wii. What's your favorite map?
Yeah. Do you like Funky Kong as much as I do? But I spent so much time on dating apps, figuring out kind of the game of it. It was how I met most of the people I dated through that time period of my life. And I realized towards the last couple years, especially where I took like longer breaks away from it, I wanted to focus more on meeting people in person. The way it had made me see other people, see myself, I noticed all these terrible things about the way I interacted with people. I don't think I was able to show what I think is valuable about myself in a social context. So because you're, especially as a guy, I think you're dealing with rejection more than than acknowledgement, right? So that kind of eats away at your self-esteem over time, especially as like maybe you get ghosted. But also in return, it creates this culture of you ghosting or not following up on people as well, because it's so easy to quote like upgrade and go continue to swipe. Financially, I think these apps kind of prey upon those insecurities too, and like turn little bits into ways to monetize, like read receipts, looking at who's liked you first, all these little layers of monetization on the main apps.
Slime was telling me that. He was saying, you can pay for seeing who read your messages. You can pay for a super like that makes it go at the top of someone's feed. You can pay $500 a month for like the ultimate package on Tinder, which is like,
Dude.
that's just telling a lonely person, what they want to hear to extract the maximum possible wealth from them.
All the while, I think you're developing a very vapid view of the people you're looking at on the app. Like I didn't like the way I was starting to view or value the people I was speaking to or scrolling through. And then as soon as you meet in person, the whole dynamic changes. I think what often sucks
completely different
about the experience is talking to people before on the app was so drastically different from what they were like in person. And I think I personally, this is just my personal experience. I never, and I'm bracing for the joke about how I've never had sex before.
No.
But I've never used the apps to actually hook up with people.
Virgin! He's a virgin! What a virgin!
I always use them to date and meet people. And then people I ended up dating, I did end up having sex with. Actually, but but if
whoa, big guy over here wants to talk about his sex all the time.
But if I've ever
serious podcast, Aiden.
If I've ever hooked up,
it's not a bro coded show. Andrew Tate. Okay, we want to have a serious conversation about dating without you bragging about your sexual escapades.
You don't have to list every single person. You've been saying, so all these dudes,
Jonathan, I was going crazy.
He's the big three.
But I've always. This is just my way of looking at it. I've hooked up with people, hooking up with people like in a more casual setting has always happened for me in person because that dynamic is like way more comfortable and back and forth. And you have a way better read on the other person than over the app where like things are so ambiguous and you're guessing and you feel more insecure. You're trying to imagine what they think. And you, depending on your insecurities, I think you take it in more negative directions than like things actually mean. And stuff comes across in like the wrong way that so much about in-person communication just conveys automatically. If that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. So then, based on what you're saying and based on this graph here, I don't know if you pulled up, this is how couples meet. This is heterosexual couples data, but I think it applies the same to homosexuals as well. Look at the spike in the 2010s. Phones or online in general has to have some like the way your experiences line up with this data en masse means a lot of people are more uncertain who they're talking to, how they feel. They're more uncomfortable, like more risk averse, more. I think this is a real crazy period. That's a rapid change.
Work was the second highest way that people met historically, for decades. And, only below through friends. And if you think about that and the shift that we have towards like gig culture, towards remote work, towards all these things that make work less likely to be a driving factor of like how you're meeting people in your same kind of space. It's like it makes sense, right? Everybody would be driven towards dating apps.
Dude, it's just wild seeing every other method plummet to essentially zero as online takes a total market share.
I think there's a bad combination of things here that is like there's a cultural shift that pushes a lot of activity in life towards the internet and phones in general, not just dating, right?
And then COVID also juiced that.
And then COVID also making that even worse. But dating is one of those things that gets basically siphoned in that direction. But the experience of dating online is pretty shitty. So those things interlock with each other. It's like you feel like this is the place you have to go and do it. It feels more difficult maybe to reach outside of those boundaries, to go and date just out in public. I think a question that hits people now is like, what do I even do? Like, I don't go, we have this idea through media, I think, at least in American culture of like, I will go to a bar and meet somebody. It's like, well, people don't really want to do that. And now it feels like, okay, it has to be done on the phone, but the phone makes so many things about dating so shitty.
That's a good point.
And now because the experience is only there and that experience is so bad, then you wind up just not doing it at all. I think something that also sucks about this is something I've thought about is people who are, I think particularly men who do the seeking culturally, like it is very rare that you would have a woman approach you as a guy, even if they're interested.
Sure.
And so from the male perspective, you have to do the initiating a lot of the time, the like hitting on somebody, flirting, et cetera. You have to lead that interaction, at least in a public setting. But I think what's also kind of happened is you as the guy are, if you're a conscious guy of like being like polite or like non-intrusive, I think you are more likely to be insecure about what you say to that person. And then that makes you more tentative of doing it. And then that means the remaining people, the remaining guys who are willing to say anything at all are the guys who don't have any self-awareness and say the worst things, which makes the in-person dating experience even shittier for women.
Right. Well, and
makes
it
them
feeds
more
into itself
avoidant.
because then
Yeah.
women are like, oh, well, I shouldn't respond to somebody who's coming out to me. They're usually douchebags, which means less guys who aren't douchebags will do that, which means it's more higher percentage just douchebags doing that. You know, it's like it just feeds on itself.
Because I think there's a straight female perspective of dating apps as well, right? Where their experience is very different than the men, where they get a ton of matches.
Right.
They and those matches are, I would say, very low quality on average. The
Overtly
things that they're willing to say to you,
aggressive, yeah.
overtly sexual, aggressive, maybe needlessly mean. Like it's very hard on their end to like scroll through all the garbage they get and find something that's actually worthwhile, especially because it's still through this like internet interface. And then you have two people on both ends who are getting increasingly just checked out of the whole system.
Super unhappy with the whole exactly. And ghosting each other. And yeah, I mean, one of the things you said I want to bring up, because there's a through line in comments there about a real fear of appearing creepy or off-putting or cringe.
Cringe is the word that's used a lot.
Cringe. They just don't want to, they've seen so many bad examples get publicized and then they don't want to be part of that. That is not their goal. So it's kind of avoided. You check out of the whole thing. I think check out is the good word, where it's like, I don't see how to win this game, so I won't play.
Yeah, one thing I only heard about recently is